Well, it's
I have a song going on there right
it
now.
hasn't gotten this far yet.
Yeah, really. I can't tell you last time we had hail, but I'm listening to it. Okay, now let's talk about exit options. As we mentioned previously, there are many potential ways or options you have when exiting your business. These are what we call external transfers and internal transfers. The external transfers include sales to outside buyers and recapitalizations. Internal transfers cover employee stock ownership plans, management buyouts, family buyouts, and gifting. Outside buyers consist of synergistic buyers. Those are someone in the same or comparable industry who can see a reason for buying your particular business. And then investment buyers. Typically, the highest price is paid by a synergistic buyer. Someone buying for an investment will pay less than that. Private equity recapitalizations and employee stock ownership plans should be considered by those owners who are looking to reduce the risk of their investment in the business, but are not ready to stop running the business. Management and family buyouts may also be viable options, but usually have lower cash down payments and require the business owner to take a good part of their payment in a loan that is payable over time. Gifting works only for an owner who has sufficient assets to cover the cost of their lifestyle without consideration of the value of the business. We work with the business owner to select the option that is appropriate from them. The steps that we've talked about here, they just want to clarify something. We've presented them in a certain order, and they may or may not be addressed in that order, but they all will end up being addressed. Next slide, please.
You know what, Mark and Karen, can I go back? There's actually a couple questions that came in here, and I think this might be a good time to kind of address these if we can.
Sure.
First off, Mark, there was one comment. Thank you for sharing that personal story, and we too do appreciate that. That was very, very powerful. Here's a question. So how can business owners transition after selling their business realistically? Or how can they realistically transition after selling the business? And that's followed up by, do you see them reinvesting in similar businesses, or do they start another business unrelated to the old?
We're gonna have you turn around. I think we got to. Let's make sure we got the question, because I'm looking at all this ice on my back deck. The back deck here.
Yeah, we're having difficulty hearing.
Yes, but the first question was about transitioning after the sale of the business.
Yeah. Realistically, how do business owners transition after selling the business? And
Well, I
then,
believe that becomes more an issue of mental readiness than anything. So I'll let Karen talk about that.
Right. If they've already sold the business and they're, at a place in their lives where they're just wondering what to do next, that's where mental readiness would come in. I mean, someone like myself would work with that person and help them really create a vision of what they want their life to look like from this point forward, rather than getting them to focus on what they've left. The more planning you put into, we have research that shows the more planning you put into the future in terms of the next phase of your life, the happier you will be. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I guess, but the follow-up here then, Karen, is do you see some folks reinvesting in another business or something unrelated or going into charity work or?
Yeah, from my standpoint, a little bit of all of that. There are a couple of factors involved. One is the age of the business owner. Two is what their interests and desires are. People derive meaning and purpose from very different places within themselves. So how they find that in other activities could be very different from one person to the next. So you may find somebody who's involved in charity, another person who might go out and work as a consultant, on a part-time basis. Again, it really depends on the age of the person as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's another comment. Mental readiness is not easy or quick. How do you folks counsel seller's remorse?
Good question.
Yeah, I think the way you guard against it is the more time and planning you put into planning for it, the less likely that will occur. Mm-hmm. And we recommend that you start planning 3 to 5 years before you're actually going to make the transfer, the transition. And believe me, when you put in that kind of time and investment, when the time comes, it has less of an emotional impact on you.
The other thing that we would do in the course of that, the mental readiness determination, is to actually help the person understand where they're going to get the meaning and challenges in their life going forward. A lot of times with the seller's remorse situation is they don't know really what it is they're going to do next. So all they can do is look backwards. But when we're working with them, we're going to look at a number of different phases that they could be involved with, and Karen's already talked about some of them with the volunteering, looking at their, what's important for them. They may want to continue to work. They may want to turn around. There'll definitely be some physical activity. There's probably some idea or something that deals with family, children, things like that. Because we've all heard the stories about the people on their deathbed are never saying they wish they had worked more. So we will help them to understand what it is that they are going to do to fill their time that's going to give them the most personal reward for doing so.
No, that's a good point. Great point. Maybe I can keep you going before you guys all lose power up there. We're really up there.
Good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do have some more questions that are coming in, but I'm gonna let you folks keep on going, and then we'll pick up the questions.
Okay.
Okay.
We just have a few more slides anyway, so.
Okay, we have a case study here, and this is a client of ours who owned a business in the trades. His company was sold this year. We took them on in 2007 and did their exit plan back then. The business value was lower in 2007 due to some significant issues within the business. These included the lack of an adequate inventory system, the lack of certain business structures, and a number of processes, and the reliance of the business were very much on the owner. The 5-year window allowed us to work with the business owner to get the business to where it needed to be, and basically running it as if it was for sale, and that's allowed us to maximize its value. We worked with his children to ramp them up so that they were properly trained and they had the experiences that they needed to take over. One of the issues that we had talked about or shown earlier was the situation where the feeling of the first generation is that the next generation isn't ready to step up, but we actually helped them address that by putting together the plan and getting the experiences and the training so that the next generation was ready. So it ended up the business is valued at almost $3 million. The owner has made the transition out and is now doing other things. And enjoying them, I might add.
Slide. So we ask that you do not be an ostrich. And remember that every business owner will leave their business eventually. So plan for your transition on your terms and protect your business legacy. Next slide. We're offering a free business assessment, which is online. You'll get a brief report, and we'll get a copy of your report as well. And then we're also offering a free telephone consultation with us. That, I have to say, that may take a week or two because of vacations, but we will get back in touch with you. All you have to do is enter in this code, this website.
Well, that was a lot of good.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm hearing that thunder in the background.
Oh, you can? Okay, good. Just go to this particular website, and it'll take you right in. You just take the assessment. It provides you with an evaluation in the areas of executive leadership, business planning, exit planning, human resources, and management and supervision. The link is good for 6 months, so you have until December 31st to complete it.
Okay. The next slide is the last one.
And that's it.
You guys covered a lot of territory. Let me come back. Here's a question, maybe going back on the next gen readiness. When you talked about actually your case study a little bit, business readiness and the owner maybe, but the next generation does not have enough readiness. They have a desire, and the 3 to 5 year time frame may not get the next generation to where they should be. What then?
One of the things we look at are focusing the first generation on what are the competencies for the work, for the job, and then looking at the second generation and determining what competencies they have. We actually do a series of assessments on them, and then working on a plan to close the gap, if there is a gap. Our experience has been that oftentimes the first generation has these beliefs about their children, and they often don't want to let those go. Mm-hmm. And so when we work on it in a very objective way, they're better able to see their children for the very talented adults that they are.
This is kind of my question at this point, Karen and Mark. Have you guys seen bringing in, say, a non-family interim CEO or manager for the time frame?
We know that's done. We haven't had that experience ourselves, but do you have anything to say?
No, not really. We have heard of those, but we haven't actually had a particular situation where we've dealt with that. Sorry.
Yeah. Here's another question. Some of the other webinars that have been done by the network talked about family constitutions and ownership agreement. Does that include, or should that include, from your perspective, a exit plan?
An exit plan.
Probably a very good idea.
Well, I'm thinking that there needs to be the discussion of the process for the generation of one and the timing of one. But each individual exit plan is going to be different. So, what's important for one person, one owner may not be what's important for the next. But there should be some discussion, some agreement as far as when the exit, the timing of it. So it may be that, at a certain age, there's an expectation that there will be a change so that you can then start the planning process ahead of time.
Right. So an exit plan, what you could write into it would be an exit plan should be done 3 to 5 years prior to actual transition.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As part of the business succession plan.
Yeah, and I think you guys hit on a key point there too, and that is that it really, from my perspective, comes down to communication and trying to be as transparent in everything as possible, because I always feel that the conflict comes when there's misaligned expectations. I love that phrase, and when you have that, then that creates distrust, and your plans are more difficult to develop and execute.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, the one thing to remember with the family business is that the exit option is the next generation taking over. So you don't necessarily need to turn around and look at all the different options. It may be there are some families that are going to turn around and decide that this may be the time to sell out. But usually the plan is for the next generation to take over. So you've got to be dealing more with the training issues and making sure that next generation is ready for it.
But you still may have gifting versus family buyout.
Yeah, it depends on how the stock and everything's up.
Right.
Here's another question. How does business succession planning differ from exit planning?
The way that we look at it is exit planning is the ultimate succession plan. Succession planning is something that you definitely need to be thinking about and should be part of every business owner's thoughts. They need to have a plan for it. They need to understand what will happen if they were to suddenly become disabled. If they were to die, what would happen with their business? Well, the situation with the exit plan is it's really just your final succession out of the business.